Okay, moving on to part 2. Confused, I tried walking, realizing I was indeed in control at the moment. I brought up the pause menu and checked my party. Miki was gone. Not just Miki, all Pokemon. He had nothing. The Pokédex was absent from the menu. His bag was empty. Honestly concerned now, I checked his trainer card. He had no money. He had no badges. His playtime was 8,795 hours, which was impossible as I had only 30 logged in before. But that wasn't the strangest part. His picture. The picture of the handsome, confident young trainer was different. His eyes were blank. His face turned slightly down. That smirk of his was gone, replaced by a lack of any expression at all. That long hair of his, before in a perfect perm, was now messy and unkempt. I couldn't look at him anymore. Closing the menu, I went to move out of the tower, but with every step I took away from the tombstone, the screen flickered, like it did when a Pokemon was poisoned. Gulping, I brought up the trainer card again. His picture was getting worse. Every step I took, he hung his head more and more. His shoulders slumped. He bent over. By the time I had exited the tower, he was on his knees, hands to his face, hair draped across him. I had guessed already what was going on, but this clinched it. I began to put some things together in my mind. I had always wondered why there was no champion in the original games besides your rival. Why is it you, the protagonist, had to beat your rival when he just waltzed in? No previous champion to challenge. Then it struck me. The answer was right here. The previous champion gave up. His precious Miki was apparently dead, and so died part of him. His Pokédex, the other Pokemon, his badges, his fame, all of it. He threw it away. In that year, the year that I had missed, the year where all those hours came from, I even did the math. There is 8,765 hours in a year. Add that to my 30 from before and it matched up. Even so, the game kept going. This should have been an ending, I thought. I mean, what else was there to do? I had no Pokédex, no Pokemon, not anything. What was I supposed to be doing? I talked to everyone in the town and they all said similar things. Are you okay? Still mourning, I see. Everything will be all right. Please, is there anything we can do? Stephen never replied to them, and they all simply said the same things over and over. I couldn't put the game down. This was all so strange. Curious, I headed off into the tall grass and eventually got into a battle with a Rattata. No Pokemon were sent out. Just Stephen's sprite. I was wondering how I'd battle. Wild Rattata left you be. The battle ended without anything happening. This was certainly interesting, and it happened with every Pokemon I encountered. Wild Pidgey ignored you. Wild Ponyta wandered off. The music never changed either, no matter where I went. Lavender Town came from the speakers, following me. Sometimes slowed down slightly, sometimes not. I searched everywhere, every town, talked to everybody, wondering just what the hell I needed to do. My frustration was mixing with the depressing atmosphere of all this, making the experience altogether unnerving and uncomfortable. But I couldn't tear myself away. I was starting to get a bit angry, though. Nobody telling me anything besides giving me their condolences and trying to give me items like lemonade or coffee or soda pop. Each met with, Stephen, no. I slapped myself for idiocy. Suddenly, I'm realizing how the likely answer was right in front of me. Pallet Town. Of course. When I went there though, which took a long time, having to walk, no Pokemon to fly with, No bicycle to ride, and Stephen only seemed to move half the regular movement speed. It wasn't much different. I first tried talking to Professor Oak. These things happen. You were just unlucky. Next I tried Blue Sister. Please, don't leave home again. Red's mom wouldn't even talk to me at all, with nowhere else in mind to go. I walked to the west, finding the house from the beginning, which I had never entered since leaving Pallet Town. Inside was Mike, but talking to him was just as useless. Mike, I'm so sorry. I pondered for a moment if this really was the ending. Stephen doomed to do nothing but roam Kanto in misery, haunted by the memories, forced to listen to everyone's concerns about him, as a last-ditch effort to do anything. I went to the bedroom and walked over to the bed. Stephen, I'm going to sleep. The screen faded to black for a moment, then slowly faded back in, the world having a black tint to it. The Mike sprite laying in the other bed. I assumed this meant it was night. Stephen, I'm going to do it. Do what? Again, I had no idea. Tried inspecting everything in the room, nothing happened. As soon as I left the house, another dialogue. It can bring her back. It can do anything. What in the hell was it? Something that could do anything. I couldn't for the life of me figure it out. Wandering about, I tried to leave Pallet Town the usual way. Not that way. He wouldn't go any further. I tried the Holmes. Screw them. I quirked my eyebrow at them, forgetting for a moment this was not a real Pokemon game. The vulgarity just took me off guard. I continued to look around, but there was nowhere I could go, until I accidentally stepped on the ocean, and Stephen walked right in, only the upper half of his sprite visible, like the swimmers you encounter in the Cerulean Gym. I didn't know he could swim. The missing one. Missing one? I paused for a moment. No, he couldn't possibly mean that. I hadn't tried the missing number trick on this hack yet, but it just fits too well. This had to be what he meant. I surfed all the way to its cinnabar. I began to feel something was off, more so than this already was. Silence. The Lavender Town theme had stopped. There was no noise at all, nor were there any Pokemon. I just kept going, finding cinnabar, and surfing up and down the east coast. Lo and behold, Wild Missing Number appeared. Stephen. Mine. Wild Missing Number was caught. What the hell? Stephen didn't do anything. He just commanded that atrocity of broken data to join him. No, become his possession, and it did. I was getting more and more disturbed by this all. Checking the start menu, I saw missing number was not in my party, but instead an item, making things even stranger. I checked the trainer card as well. Stephen has his back to me, his long hair draped behind him, his hands in his pockets, nothing else. Remembering what he said at the start of this night, I realized what I had to do. I surfed to land and made my way northeast to, where else? Lavender Town. Along the way, I noticed all the trainers, oddly still out of this hour, wouldn't look at Stephen, all of them turning when he passed, even those that were normally static. I tried talking to one of the officers in the guardhouse type buildings. Just go. They all said the same thing, though one sent chills down my spine. Sometimes dead is best. My hands were sweating by this point. Stephen was about to try the impossible, something some would see as a crime against nature, which many of these people share that opinion. I steeled myself. It's just a game, and I was going to complete it. It took an eternity to reach Pokemon Tower, but I got there eventually, taking a deep breath and heading toward the tombstone. I remembered which one. The image of Stephen standing before. It was burned into my mind. after all. First, I tried inspecting it. Stephen. B key. Nothing happened. With a gulp, I opened the menu and selected missing number from the bag. Oak. Stephen! Don't use it! I was reminded of when Professor Oak would magically tell you that you couldn't use a key item somewhere, like when using a bicycle in a building, though the message this time was different. Even worse, Stephen responded to it. In a world that cheated me, why should I play fair? Stephen used it. Stephen obtained Magnum-esque. What in God's name did I obtain? I couldn't tell you because the game took away my control. Without my input, Stephen began to leave the tower on his own, walking single step by single step. The Lavender Town theme started again as he left the tower and began his excruciatingly slow journey against my will. Every time he crossed one of the borders where the music would change, it got progressively slower, more and more disturbing. By the time he reached Cerulean City, it was a demonic rumbling. I just stared, watching him, trying to guess where he was going, but it was getting more and more obvious. He was heading to Pallet Town. The music had all but stopped when he got there, playing single note by single note. He went exactly where I had guessed, right to his own house, inside and up the stairs. At this point there was no music. Stephen moved step by step, stopping at his brother's bed, turning to face him. At first I thought the game froze. He didn't do anything, simply stood there, and I couldn't move him. I did, however, find out I could open the pause menu. I was terrified to look, but I couldn't stop myself. I selected his trader card. There was a low growl noise, like a distorted Pokemon cry. Stephen was looking at me again, directly at the screen. He was hunched over, his bangs obscuring his face. His hair was wild and feathered out. Between his bangs there wasn't even a face at all, just black, two red eyes looking straight forward, a white grin contrasting with the darkness. That wasn't all. His name was now S!3v3N. I couldn't look away, my eyes glued to his, not breaking contact for some time. My vision was getting blurry until I couldn't see very well. My face grew wet. I was crying like a baby. There was nothing I could do to hold back the tears. I was with this boy from the start. I built him up to greatness and was then forced to watch his decline after a tragic accident. And now he was this thing, this abomination. I watched him go insane. Halting my tears, wiping my eyes, I closed out of the trainer card and tried to save the game, wanting to just quit. The game informed me this was impossible. Nothing can be saved now. The pause menu wouldn't close no matter what I did, so with no other option, I checked the bag. Nothing happened. I checked Pokemon, and there was one. A single sprite met me. It had a 0 hit points HP, its status DED, dead. Its name, Mac, capital M at number S. I selected it and I was greeted with 4 options. Status, it's her. Switch, never. Close, no. Strangle. My fingers shaking. I selected Strangle and the menu closed, showing Stephen in the room again. Goodbye. Snap. The game shut itself off. I was more dumbfounded than frightened. In a bit of shock, I turned it back on. The title screen showing the manic Stephen and horribly glitched Charizard. I pressed start, then continued. All I saw was a zoomed-out view of Pallet Town, showing Stephen's home to the west, tall grass surrounding it, those unmovable stones blocking it from the rest of the town.